Hello there, my name is Brad, and I am a motivational speaker, author, and mindset coach. I'm here to talk with you about things that happen in our lives and the stories that we make up about them and how they can limit us in life. So my speech today is titled Something Happened. So my first question for you is, how many of us, by a show of hands, like to be right? I mean, come on, we all like to be right, right? There is this really great feeling that comes with being right. But what happens when you realize you were wrong? Where does that great feeling go? I mean, being right, man, I love being right. But do you know what else I love? I love being wrong. And the reason I love being wrong, while you're scratching your heads there, is because I get to learn something new. I get to learn something new that shifts my perspective and how I see the world and the people around me. I mean, I believe that we all like to be right. There is this great sense of gratification and self-validation that comes with being right. You know, in a world where we've got so much coming at us, it can be really overwhelming. And when we have this situation where we feel right, it can feel like we've got some sort of control. And for me, I love being in control. So how does a sense of being right relate to something happened? Well, that is a good question. Let's take a look at when something happens in our lives and our need to understand it follows that situation. For example, let's take a look at romantic relationships. We meet somebody and we find out, or we figure out that we're interested in them, and we ask them out. And even though we've been hurt in the past, we put all of that behind us and we take this chance. And we go on this date, it works out, we ask them out again, it works out again, and so we keep asking them out, and we start to feel like, I think I'm starting to fall in love with this person. And so we keep going, and then one day, something happens, and boom, we feel betrayed. We wonder why we ever didn't listen to that voice that said, I told you we can't trust people, especially in romantic relationships. And now it's happened. You're triggered. So now you have some choices to make. First choice could be ignore what happened and hope that it never happens again. The next choice might be we get upset and we tell them what a horrible person they are, and there you go. Or we can choose to not speak to them until they realize what they've done and they come and apologize. And we all know how well that works, right? Another option would be to ask them to have a conversation so that you can understand what happened, why they did what they did, and hopefully understand it better. Or you could choose to stop seeing them altogether. There are a lot of different choices, but which one is the right one? Well, that actually depends. And it depends on you. It depends on your values. It depends on your belief system. It depends on how invested you are with this person already. And do you want to continue to move forward with them? A question you might be asking yourself, am I right or am I wrong? And my question for you is, why do you need to be right? Now, if you are committed to being right, and there are people like that, it's very, very simple. You make a decision and you're done. But if you want to get to the truth, well, that's going to take a little bit of courage. And I say that because having these kinds of conversations can be awkward and challenging. And you might find out something that you did not want to know about this person. However, you might find out something that you need to know about this person and yourself. The question I ask myself in times and situations like this are, do I have enough information about the situation to make a valid decision? Am I right or am I wrong? Why do I feel the need to be right? Is what I'm seeing really happening, or are all of my past experiences coming in to filter and skew what I'm seeing? Are all of my past experiences affecting my ability to see the real situation? What if I act too quickly? Will I be proud of how I act? Will I be proud tomorrow? Will I be proud next month, next year? So when I start asking myself questions, it keeps me from having a reaction. So now I can have a response. And that response is going to at least be somewhat educated based on me digging into myself for answers and whoever I might need those answers from. So something happened. Now when I say something happened, I did not say something good or bad happened. Because anything that happens is neutral. The only time it has meaning is when we give it meaning or give it a label. So for you, it could be anything. It could be a promotion, for example. Most of the time, promotions are seen as good things. And that's because normally you get a raise. Normally you get a new title. Sometimes you get an office and you get more responsibility. And now you have a team that reports to you sometimes, right? And what about now you've got less time with family and friends and loved ones? Now you've got less time on the weekends. Now you've got less time to do the things that you really love doing. So is the promotion still a good thing? Is it working for you? Let's take a look at something on the other side of that. What about when you might get into, say, for example, a car accident? Most people would go, car accidents are bad. And I would agree for the most part, except what about when you get into this car accident, you go to the hospital, and during the workup for you, they find out that you've got a tumor. And they find it in time to remove it, and now you're cancer-free. So is the car accident still a bad thing? So my question for you now is, what happened in your life that you gave meaning to? Were you right or were you wrong? Does it even matter? Like, for example, for me, I carried the situation of being abused as a child as a really, really bad thing. And don't get me wrong, child abuse is bad, but I'm saying the feeling that I carried around about it and the story that I told myself was that I was broken, I was weak, I was somehow bad, that because of all the things that happened to me. And what I didn't realize that it affected everything in my life. And I was working at a job and I thought, I've got a great job, I work for a great company, I've got a great boss, I work with a really great team, but why am I feeling so unfulfilled? Well, I didn't have the answers until I went to my first self-development course. And I went to this course because of the way that I was feeling. So during this course, what happened was the facilitators would ask a lot of questions. And the questions would be around things that have happened in our lives and the stories or meanings that we gave to those things that happened. And when I saw people answering the questions in the exact same way that I did, and they felt the same exact way that I did about those things that have happened, and realized that they had given the same meaning to their situations that I gave to my situations, it completely blew my mind. And what it allowed me to do was to realize that I'm not alone. That the things that happened don't define me. They're only things that have happened. And so I was able to grant myself forgiveness and grace and compassion, and starting on a new path to feel and think differently about myself. So when I say something happened and it's not good or bad, it's only because we've been told to give it meaning, not that it actually has meaning. So things that I ask my clients are, would you ever judge your friends or loved ones for something happening to them that was out of their control? And 100% of the time, the answer is no. And my follow-up question is, then why are you doing that to yourself? And the answer is usually, I don't know. Or they just stay silent. You see, we have so little control in our lives. We have so little control over what happens in our lives, but we like to think that we do. And what I have learned is that by letting go of control, I actually feel better. And so a really quick example might be you're up for a raise or a promotion, maybe both. And the thing is that is out of your control is now you have to go and get a review by a manager from a different department, or better yet, a different company. They've never worked with you. They don't even know you. And yet now they've got control over you getting a raise or a promotion or both. And so I want you to understand that your situations in life that happen vastly out of your control. So why would you allow this situation to define you, or for you to put a label on this and let that define you? So there's this saying, and it goes, life happens for you, not to you. Now, you might not think that way right now. I know I didn't, because there was a time where I was going like, you might ask the question, why is this happening to me? Or if you're me, you might be going like, why is this happening to me again, right? Well, there's also a saying that life will keep bringing you the same lesson until you learn it. And I'm hoping that the lesson that you're starting to learn now is stop giving meaning to things that happen in your life. So when I started to realize that life actually does happen for me, it again changed everything. Because there's a phrase, and I say a lot of that, that you either win or learn. And for me, it took me a long time to understand when people would say, what if I told you that you could never fail? And what that means is you either win or learn. So there's no failure in not winning. You learn the lesson. And so what that meant for me is, okay, this didn't work out the way that I was hoping that it would, but I did learn a valuable lesson, and now I can approach this differently. And I'll just use that for my path of self-development and for romantic relationships. The way that I approached them in the past didn't work, so now that was a lesson for how to do it differently next time. So understand that this changing of mindset might take a while. It's not something that just happens overnight. It takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of grace and compassion for yourself. So you might be wondering, okay, so how do I transition to looking at lessons as gifts? And the first thing I will tell you is it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. It doesn't just happen overnight. And what I can share with you is that you didn't come by this by accident. Society and culture has programmed us into thinking that we need to put labels on things as good or bad, right or wrong, and win or lose. And that's not the way that life really works. So what I want to share with you is how to take that programming that you've had and learn how to shift it into seeing things in a different way. So now that you have this, hopefully you have this new understanding that you've been programmed for years, maybe even decades, to put labels on things as good or bad, right or wrong, win or lose, win or fail. Now that you know this, you can start to separate yourself from that way of thinking. And so one way to adopt a new mindset is, again, to remember that we've got almost no control over things that happen in our lives, and giving it a lot of practice and understanding that there's this thing called the comfort zone. And I no longer call it that. I call it the familiar zone, because it's what we are familiar with. So if you've ever thought about, well, maybe I should move to a new city or a new state, but you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. And that's because you're comfortable where you are. Well, maybe you're not comfortable, but you're familiar with it. So what I do when I start to realize that I'm feeling a certain way about a new thing, okay, I go, all right, I'm feeling a certain way. And then once I realize that, I go, okay, well, what exactly am I feeling? And then I look at this and I go, okay, why am I feeling this way? Is this from a belief system? And is this my belief system? And was it handed down to me from my parents or teachers or friends? And then why do I believe this? And so then I ask myself, well, is this serving me? Is this working for me? And if it is, then I keep it. But if it's not, I look at what is a new belief system that I can have? What is a new way of thinking that I can have that will work for me? And then I remember it's going to take practice. Like I just had an epiphany the other day about how money flows in and out of life, which is a whole other speech. And then I ask myself, how does this new way of thinking feel to me? Does it just feel awkward, or does it feel like it's not working? If it just feels awkward, I'm going to give it some more time to practice it and see what happens. And then I remember to give myself grace and allow it to take time. So by now, I hope you're starting to see how putting labels on things as good or bad, win or lose, right or wrong, is really limiting you. And I want to give you some tools to start to shift your way of thinking. And it's a sort of a recap, so if you'll bear with me here. The first question I want you to write down is, was this in my control? Was this in my control? And the second question is, what could I have done to prevent this? And a sub question is, would I have prevented this if I could have? And 3 is, would a different outcome have been better? Would it have worked for me? And how do we even know that it would have been better? And along the lines of better, we sometimes think if we can put up walls to protect ourselves from bad things happening, that somehow we can prevent that. Well, the question I have for you is, do you realize that when you put up these walls, not only do you keep bad things from coming in, but you also prevent good things from coming in? So I hope that helps you in realizing that there is no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. There is only something that happens, and then only when we put a value on it does it take on any sort of value of good or bad or right or wrong. I thank you for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. If you have any questions, I will be available. Please either email me or send me a text or stick around after this speech, and I'm happy to speak with you. So once again, my name is Brad Kenny. I would love to share all of my tools with you, so please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.